And what you're looking at right now is the main page for LinkedIn Learning. And you're probably used to seeing, let me blow it up too. I like to make things as big as possible and get some of the things off the screen that might get in the way. You'll see a home tab, browse, you see your face. You will have a little drop down once you have access to the admin page. So I'm going to actually click on, I got to switch accounts because I also have a couple of test accounts. So I'm switching over. And what you'll see when you get access is this admin tab. So it's in the top right here where it says go to admin. And you click on that and you'll be brought to a new page where you'll see, depending on what configuration you have, you'll see a couple different tabs up top. Of importance here and what you'll really care about as you're learning to jump into LinkedIn Learning and shape content for students is the content tab. So we'll click on the content tab. Now, you can either click on the content tab or you can, what I say, hover to discover. It's kind of catchy, so I always use that line. And if you just hover the mouse without even clicking, you can do a shortcut to featured content, what we call learning paths, collections, and custom content. The portions that I want to focus on for you are learning paths, collections, and custom content. This is what I've played with a lot to create my own training materials for internal uses, and this is what I think you can use and what you can leverage to shape the learner experience. The learning path is cool. So I'm going to just say it's cool. I'm going to show you what it is, and then I'll work backwards. So you get a view of what it looks like, kind of let it speak for itself. I've already got a demo that I like to use for faculty. And in this example, this learning path, this is something you could share with students. And it could be an example like a lesson. I just did a lesson 1, digital photography. I like photography. I knew enough to be able to pull pieces in for a good example. So I'll show you what an example looks like, and then we can go backwards from there.
So this example is what students would see when they log in?
Exactly. This is what you would be able to share with a student. And what students will see is, hey, this is lesson 1, digital photography. They'll get an overview of what this learning path entails from a time perspective. So they go, you know what, this is going to be 5 hours of content. I'm probably not going to sit in the cafe the entire time. They just set that expectation. Now, to compare this to some of the tools that you used to use, it used to be where you would just send a video or a course, and it was, hey, watch this. What you're noticing here is that I'm able to shape that content now, and instead of just sending a video or a course, you can add in what you think might be relevant. Right. So in this example, I just said, hey, it's week 1. Let's start them off with a reminder to look at the syllabus. Having just graduated with my master's degree, I'm very familiar with the fact that it's super easy to overlook the syllabus. And in this case, as an instructor, as a mock instructor, I wanted to remind them to take a look at the syllabus. But if you had a lesson that was you wrote out in a document form, you could have that presented first. Then I followed up with my own personal video that I added to LinkedIn Learning. Now, this is content that's just hosted on the organization's site, so I know that it's not going to be posted for everybody to see. And in this mock instructor video, it's me saying, hey, welcome to lesson 1. This is, and then kind of like that introduction to shape the lesson there and make it personalized.
And Joe, could those videos be stored like on YouTube and just mark them as private, or?
Yeah, you could mark it as private in YouTube, or you could host it right here on LinkedIn Learning, and it does all the work for you to pop up on their phones. So I love that when I make content here at LinkedIn to share with my colleagues. If I do a training, I'm able to share that, and I know people can watch it on their phones from wherever they're at.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. So it's really cool. I'm glad you asked that, but you can also link to external sites. So let's say you've got a really popular YouTube channel that already has a library where you want students to be familiar with that. You can link to that site. If it's a TED Talk and you want to link to that, you can link to that as well. The content does not embed because this is a one-stop shop for the content. So it really puts blinders on the learner as far as other links. You get them to this learning path and it's, hey, this is what you need them to see, what you want them to see.
Okay, perfect.
And so in this example, again, we've got a document that I personalized, a personalized video message from myself, which in this case is hosted on LinkedIn Learning, just for my students in the organization to have access to. And I primed them to jump into this course, which is an entire 5-hour course. And I've got a couple notes for them. Hey, complete this before class on Wednesday. That way, when they come into class on Wednesday, they're already, we flipped the classroom idea. They're ready to kind of talk about it and just prime them. 5 hours there. And then I wanted to, in this case, because we know students all have these fancy phones in their pockets, I wanted them to then relate some of the content they learned about the big professional cameras to what they have in their pocket. So I linked them to a quick article on shooting on their iPhone or their Android device, just as a mock. And then I further shaped that with a professional video on mobile photography, which is just 5 minutes long, taught by one of the professionals here that works with LinkedIn Learning. And then I just brushed it all up with a forum discussion. Now, depending on how your class works, you can decide to link to a discussion that's maybe within your LMS if you wanted to. In this case, I did an example with Blackboard. And then at the very bottom, it just polishes it off by automatically adding who the hosts of the courses and the videos are.
Right.
And
so when we create learning paths, we'll have like a storage area like this where we'll see all the ones we've created.
Yep. And I'm glad you asked that, because you can also see, depending on the permissions that you have, if I click off me, this little X button here, where it just says me, you can click that and then it'll show the organization and you can do a deeper dive. And that way you can do some sharing across everybody. So that can be kind of handy to borrow from colleagues as well if you have a nice template.
And then if we wanted to post, say, one of these learning paths out to, we use Canvas here.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to put it out there, we would just link to it in Canvas. Is that what we do?
Yeah, great question, because what you'll do, and when you look at this, you don't see it right off the bat. It's a hover, and then another sort of discover. So it's a hover, discover, click, and then you'll see the get SSO URL, and that you can send. That single sign-on link is going to authenticate students, or really anybody who's doing this. It can be for anybody. And so they'll have access to doing that. Alternatively, if you're in the environment to edit, you'll also see the option here, recommend, which will include those options as well.
Okay. So the SSO URL, they would click on that, they would be prompted to log in, and then it takes them straight to here. That's easy enough.
Mm-hmm. You got it. And the workflow, to give you an idea, these are some tips, and since this is being recorded, great idea, Steve, because you're probably not going to remember every little step here. No big deal. We'll send this out to you so you have it handy.
Yeah.
And if you click on the create new, I like to open up, so I'll open this create new, and I'll just do test and test again. So I've created this. I like to have my environment where I'm building in one tab, and then I'll have another tab Outlook really wants me to check my email. No, I like to have another tab open as well. So here I am in that area where I created a new. So I'll go to custom content and right click that. Or I'm sorry, I'll right click on content and that'll open a new tab for me. And then I'll click on custom content.
Okay.
And in this area, I can then choose to pull in links. So if I want to link to a YouTube, if I want to link to TED Talks, or if I want to upload my own content, here's where you can upload your own video.
Gotcha.
And then I'll let this load in the background while I continue to type out what I need to here.
Okay.
As I'm typing these out, heads up, this is a big one. Be sure to hit save every so often.
Okay.
Just something I've noticed is that it doesn't auto save yet. That's actually feedback that I've given to the team here. Always listening to that, but hey, I want to share my experience with you. Hit that save button.
So this information we're putting on this left-hand column over here, that's the information we saw in that left-hand column on the, like where it says section 1, you put in title and description. That's
Yeah.
what's showing up on that border on the left, right?
Yep, you bet.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And another note about custom content, once you throw some content in here, I actually should have done, here, I'll do a photo, I suppose, and save this photo to the background just to give you a mock of what it looks like. Save this to the desktop. So if I upload my own content, and I'll grab it from the computer,
Sure.
desktop.
There it is.
There is a queue, and so what I wanting to show you, if that was a video, it would it have a little line that shows you, hey, loading bar, and then it'll put a couple options here to add details. So you'll have to add some details here, title, description, skill. So for example, if it was a video on fundraising, I would type that in. It'll give you some suggested skills to attach that to. This makes it easy to search for.
Oh, yeah.
Then you can add your own custom tags. So let's say that it's photography 101, whatever the shortcut for that would be, you'd add that. And you're still not done yet. You'll want to hit publish because you will not be able to find that content within when you hit add. So I want to search for content. It won't pop up for you in here just yet to add.
Oh, okay.
You do have to publish it. And after doing that, 3 or 4 times, that flow becomes pretty natural to you.
Sure.
It is pretty intuitive too, where when you add content, generally, it'll pop up with the content that was added last and making it a little bit easier that route.
Super.
Yeah, and it is best to get in there and play. One question I get about learning paths is, so if I publish one, does everybody in the organization get to see it? That's something to be mindful of. So I have a couple out there where the company could see it, but you'd have to actively go in and type the exact thing that I looked for in there. So I don't mind doing little tests here and there. It doesn't bother me to have a test or a work in progress in there, and to just really play around with it and then see what works for you.
So what you're saying is when we create a learning path, everyone in our organization can see it.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's not available. Another question that I get is that, hey, is this content going to be available on all of LinkedIn Learning? And that's a no. That's all proprietary, safe. And a matter of fact, I can't even see what that stuff is. So that makes it a challenge to troubleshoot if something goes wrong, which usually doesn't. But I did notice that it's totally siloed to your organization.
Okay. Can we also, on these sections down here, can we link to any collections that we've saved and that kind of thing?
That's a good question. Search for content, courses. I believe, I don't see why you wouldn't be able to. That's actually a pretty creative idea where I'm thinking it's not built in, but what you could do is go get SSO URL or grab the URL for your collection. And then you could do the link to content, and I wonder what that'll show. I bet you I can come up with a workaround for you if it doesn't do it by default.
Right.
Yeah, so it looks like it does let you do that. I'm glad you asked that too, because I want to show you something that's really handy. So if I go to YouTube and then youtube.com, I'm just going to grab one of the first videos that I see. And let's see, let's do.
You never know what's going to come up on YouTube.
You don't know. And
It can be scary.
and yeah, you name it. So let's pretend that I'm doing a class on Super Mario Brothers 3, which is not super likely, but I want to show you one of the features that can streamline your building process, save you a little bit of time, and make the product look really polished. So link to content. If I grab that, it scrubs that site for a default image.
Oh, wow.
Automatically fills in the title and even the description. So if I hit save and publish, it pulls all that in for me. And then I can go ahead and put, hey, we're checking this out for this, that, and the cultural impact of Super Mario Brothers 3. And then you can.
Oh, that makes your job a whole lot easier.
It does, yeah. That's what I thought.
That's super.
Now, not every site I've noticed does that, but I'd say most of the prominent ones, if it's an article or something of that nature, it's going to automatically pull that in. And if you don't like that, so if you don't like the photo that automatically pops up, you can always edit that and put in your own photo as well.
Oh, okay.
Yep, tells you how big the photo's got to be and everything.
That's super.
And so that is an overview of the LinkedIn learning paths.
So what we do is we just go down and keep filling out that template. And then when we save it, where is it saved to, Joe?
It'll save it to, based off of I'm going to go to the details here. You'll have skills and tags. So if you put in a tag there, that tag is going to be searchable in the learner environment. It's also going to be available in your admin page. So if you go to content learning paths, you'll be able to access. So here's an example, diversity and inclusion. You'll be able to access those links here as well.
Oh, okay. So it's part of my admin page is what you're telling me.
You got it.
Okay. That's easy enough.
Mm-hmm.
And that's under content and then learning paths. I got you.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, this has been great. I wonder if anyone else has a question before we shut this thing down.